I think, the leads suck when you dial 50 and you're there and you go to lunch for 3 hours and you dial 10 and then you're like, okay, that's a wrap. I'm like, that's a wrap.
Right.
Like, dude, you dialed 60 times.
Yeah, I don't think it's the leads.
Yeah, it's definitely not the leads.
Right. All right, welcome to True Talk. I'm my man Eric Schmidt with us today. How we doing, bro?
Doing great, man. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming down on short notice,
yes.
as I heard.
Yes, very short. You. All good, though.
And to be fully transparent, why we asked you. So we had Freddie Marichal last week.
My man.
Absolutely. He started telling a story about when you recruited him.
Yeah.
And I've heard the story before. And what I love about it, and we'll get into a little bit, is for me, that is the perfect way to recruit someone. And why I mentioned that, Eric, is so often what happens is the opposite. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, at times people fall into this kind of mindset of like, I need to convince you to join me. Mm. I'm going to tell this guy why he would be great at it. Like, don't ever say that to anyone.
No.
And that was the complete opposite of your interaction.
Absolutely.
You weren't trying to recruit him. You're almost trying to get him to say no, right? And he just kept giving you all the right answers. And lo and behold, he's here years later. He came in with some other people. They're no longer here. He's still here, helping tons of families. And so, that. And then the other reason, Eric, is I was looking at the leaderboard. What's crazy is you came out of the field a few years ago.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the leaderboard, and you were at like almost 40 families last month.
Correct, yeah.
And then I look at the year to date, I'm like, he's on track to hit Hall of Fame.
Yes, sir.
Then I see the agency. I'm like, his agency's on track to hit Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Completely different story from, a year ago,
correct,
maybe?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
So really that's why I wanted you to come down. So I figured instead of calling you up and ask you what's going on, let's have you right on True Talk and do it here, right?
Perfect.
So, I mean, what has changed for you over the past year?
Well, at National Convention in Los Colinas last year, even though I did personally produce, 100 families, something like that last year, not being a part of the Hall of Fame festivities, was just like, this is like, feels like it was making me feel real uncomfortable.
Okay.
I didn't bring my red jacket that I had earned in previous years.
You didn't bring it?
I didn't bring it.
Why?
Because I didn't earn it.
Okay.
I didn't earn it.
You didn't earn it that year. You didn't
I didn't earn
right.
it for 23. Correct.
Okay.
I didn't help more than 400 families. My agency didn't help more than 1,000 families or whatever the math is, right? Or 10,000 families, right? But so I didn't bring it, and then when I walked up on stage to receive the award, for the families that I did help, I gave Sean a hug, and I said to him, next year it'll be different, and I'll have my jacket on, and my agency will have earned it as well. So that's what really did it for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's what did it for me.
So just kind of feeling left out and knowing like you used to be here.
Yeah.
And then now you were here, and you're like, wait a minute, this don't feel good.
Yeah, and my agency is in a strong spot. I mean, we have a lot of people helping a lot of families, so I don't want to put this weird color on it.
Sure.
But for me personally, like you asked, what changed for me? That's what changed, and not being a part of it.
Right.
And like I've always said, I played a lot of team sports growing up. Like I don't want to be on the sideline. I don't want to be up in the booth. I want to have my helmet on. I want to be in the huddle. I want to be, my fingers in the ground. I mean, that's where I want to be.
Right,
so,
right.
it was, and we might get into this, but that transition from field to telesales was excruciating for me. And it was whether I didn't embrace it or whatever, or the leads or the way to control the situation, without having that physical presence in the home. It was really difficult for me.
Well, because you've always been a face-to-face. I mean, you came from the car business, right?
Correct,
You're not selling cars over the phone.
No.
You're getting them to come in, and it's always relationship, getting them to like you, trust you, find something that fits their – I mean, the same concept, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
So you've always done that. I mean, you were, what, two decades in
23
car
years.
sales?
23 years in car sales, yeah.
So you talk about the transition. Did that happen – did you come out of the field first and then try to come back into the field doing telesales, or where was that transition point for you?
Yeah, so when I left the field, helped 479 families my first year, helped over 600 families my second year. My third year, agency helped, it was a Hall of Fame agency, but I helped less than 400 families my third year.
Okay.
And then the fourth year, everything was transitioning into telesales. And at that point, I changed up my lead flow because I was, making other decisions within the agency, spending a lot of time recruiting, having those conversations, nationally with a lot of people. And then saying, okay, hey, you know what? I got to, the way that I was always never in a position to say no, and I was always in a position to say yes because of the cash flow in the agency. And that came a lot because the biggest spread's always going to be on yourself.
Sure.
No matter if you're at, a starting contract or you're at a top contract, it's always going to be the biggest on yourself.
Right.
And now, like I would call people and they wouldn't answer the phone and they would hang up quick. And I'm just like, man, like I can't steer the boat. There was nothing there. But honestly, Nasser and Zach's team, a lot of those guys, they helped me out.
Really?
Ronnie Salem, who I know you've talked to about.
Yeah.
I mean, like those guys really got me in a position to get that telesales confidence and overcoming silly objections. And they're different objections from in the home to objections on the phone. And then how to overcome them. So, Ronnie and Nasser definitely helped me out.
That's
with
awesome,
that.
dude. What was that like to deal with? Because I mean, you've been good in sales, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you made it up to the top tier in car sales. Like I remember you was a finance manager or whatnot,
General manager
before you moved over. So you've always excelled at sales.
Yep.
You came here. You mentioned your first year. What you didn't mention was you started part time.
Correct.
Started, what was it, April?
Yeah, April 1st.
Hit Hall of Fame, and this is, I mean, now people, why do that now? Yeah, but this was like, it's like the whole 4-minute mile thing. At that point, we hadn't had someone come in April and hit Hall of Fame, and you did it, right? So you've always, at least since I've known you, done really well in sales, and then you get this transition to telesales, and now it's like, oh, shit, it's not the results I'm used to. What was that like to deal with at that time?
It was really difficult. I mean, I don't know what other words to put at you, but it was just like, man, like, I can't do anything right here. Like it was just like I'm not going to be driving in the field. I had made other commitments and promises where I wasn't going to be able to do 60, 70, 80,000 miles behind the wheel of my car, driving around Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, hitting all 3 of those states. And then like just making the calls and just it wasn't that I couldn't buy the leads or didn't have the opportunities. It was just like converting that over the telephone, just like, man, I suck at this. Like I was really, really bad.
Yeah.
And then, finally, just, working with some other people that are really good at it, and saying, hey, you know what? You were really good at the in-home, and I've trained on it. I've talked at convention about it. But now, like, that's not our deal anymore. So doing that over the phone, I'm like, hey, there's something missing here.
Sure.
And my tone, my voice inflection, my posture, when to talk, when to shut up, a lot of these things that allow you to take control over the phone like I was doing in home. But it was it was a slump for sure. Yeah, no doubt.
First of all, I appreciate you being honest. Sometimes you ask people like, oh, yeah, I transitioned. It was fine. It was perfect. Like, I don't know that I believe that because it is a whole different ball game, right?
For me, for sure. Yeah.
Was there any point where you kind of questioned it to the point where, hey, maybe I just should stop. Maybe I shouldn't get back into sales. I should just keep growing the agency. Did that ever cross your mind?
No, because I've always been my agency's always had the best traction when I've been right there with it.
Right.
Not helping the most families, but definitely helping families.
Sure.
Maybe not every day because you can have a bad day or a bad week, but if you work, every single day, you're not gonna have a bad month. And we've said that. I've heard you say it 100 times. I've said it, many times too. So, but that's where like it's always been the best, right? And when I'm working with Frederick or a Madison or Lou or any of these other people that I work with, they're like, well, what's he doing?
Right.
And I can't say, hey, post your sales. And I'm like, well, where's yours, bro?
Exactly.
Like, okay, yeah. If you can't, preach on someone to go to the gym if you never show up.
Correct.
Correct. So I think that's why, I had to be in the mix. I had to be involved. And now when I'm having conversations with agents or I'm talking to people that are thinking about joining our industry, I can have real-time conversation with them because I know what, final expense leads look like. I know what mortgage protection leads like, IUL leads, veteran leads, any of these types of leads and all these different types of, scenarios, and what's going on with, dialers and, ways that we can do underwriting in the field. So like, it isn't like, oh, well, we'll go talk to Bob and Mary because they know how to do it. I'm just, I don't do that part. No, I do every part.
Correct.
So.
Correct. So how you said you were in a slump. How long did this slump last?
I probably blocked that out of my memory. Weeks upon weeks upon weeks upon
really?
weeks.
Yeah,
no doubt. Like, and if someone said yes, it was just like, ooh, I might, like what happened,
right.
But when it clicked,
yeah,
for sure. I mean, I qualified for the cruise,
okay.
right? So over, way over 100 families for
nice.
that 3 month, which was amazing. And that's going to be an awesome event, coming up here soon.
And that was all over the phone.
All over the phone.
Yeah.
All over the phone. And all, no book of business. That was pretty,
leads.
if a book of business called me, yes, but it was all leads.
Got it.
It was all leads, all over the phone, all final expense.
So how long have you now felt like you've had it figured out, the telesale?
Well, I would probably say so, I've helped over 227 families so far this month, and we're 22 weeks into the month, into the year, something
this year,
like that. Yeah. So, so this year, I would say this year.
So early this year, you kind of clicked for you.
Yeah.
Well, so you said you reached out to some folks in Zach's group?
Yeah, Zach Twardowski's group.
Zach Twardowski's group. What was it, like, what was the biggest change you made to go from this slump to now Hall of Fame, type numbers?
Well, first, acknowledging that you have a problem.
Yeah.
With there's lots of problems in the world, but this was my problem as far as the business was concerned. And I also felt that it was affecting the agency as well, because, I wasn't in a position to say yes to everything. Even,
right.
As an integrity partner, obviously, we're doing everything we can to increase the overall profitability of the company.
Sure.
But, if I'm not taking advantage of the biggest spread that we have, then I'm not really doing what's right for the company or integrity as a whole. So, but, reaching out to I reached out to a bunch of people. It just wasn't Zach. It was a bunch of my FFL integrity partners. And I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And, and some people are in the field. Some people have people that are really good in the field, telesales wise. But I reached out to Zach, and I'm just like, dude, like, this is where I'm at. I need help, and it's not a question of, investing. It's just, I can't, there's something here.
Right. I'm doing something wrong.
I'm just not connecting the dots, and I'm doing really bad on it. So I spent, hours, to dozens and hundreds of hours on, Zooms with Ronnie and with Nasser and, a bunch of people, Calvin and a bunch of people, in those groups. And then just found, okay, that's what I'm doing wrong. And, whether it's voice, tone, inflection, caring too much, not caring enough, talking too much, not talking enough, shutting up, letting, it's okay if there's dead air.
Yeah.
Typically not in a podcast, but it's,
right.
it's okay if there's dead air on the phone.
Correct.
It's okay to dig a little bit deeper. And maybe, you always want to find, for lack of a better word, that pain point.
Sure.
Why did the person click on it?
Yeah.
Because there's tons of stuff on social media for stuff to people to click on. Why did they click on that? And now I have to get back to that point. And maybe,
so you kind of got away from that on the phone.
I did. Well, because in the home, like you can see pictures, you can see animals, you can see balls out in the yard. You can connect much quicker, and you're like, okay, I see why I'm here. You know, but on the phone, like you have to peel that back a little bit further. If I'm like, how will that affect you? And not only financially but emotionally if Mary's no longer here. Yeah. Well, it's gonna suck. Got it. Tell me more about that. Right. Well, and then they say something. Well, tell me a little bit more. And then just, keep peeling it back and get to that point where like, okay, because we always talk about let's get rid of all the objections prior to presentation rather than have to deal with objections at the end, which should not have to be dealt with. And when you are asking those types of questions early on, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. If you do get something towards the end of the presentation, then you can always go back and say, well, we talked about your sister-in-law having to fly in from Nebraska and how that would affect, like, that's why we're talking about this. That's why it's important. And so I got away from a lot of that. Got it. Which I didn't have to do when I was in the home. Right. Because I could just, connect the dots much quicker. Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, to my point earlier, you've been in sales forever. You've been good at it. So it came natural face-to-face. And now over the phone, it's like learning. It ain't riding a bike again. It's like learning how to ride something else. Like it's a completely different animal. Yeah, unicycle. Yeah. You're like, I'm trying to ride it like a bike. It ain't gonna work. There's only one wheel. Yeah, absolutely. But it's clicking now. It's going in the right direction. Getting people, whether you have an Android or an Apple phone. Yeah. getting, so whenever it's Apple, I try to go FaceTime as soon as possible. I want them to see me. I want to see them.
Yeah.
If there is that link on Apple phones that you can send to an Android, you can't share screens, but I do want to connect those things real quick, and that's something I picked up from our trainings as well.
Yeah, and that's why it's so key to just like reach out. I mean, there's plenty of people here. Someone's got it figured out, and whatever you're doing, you want to learn IULs, you want to learn final expense, mortgage, this type of lead, that type of lead, virtual. Tell us somebody's doing it. Just reach out and find out. It's a one big team, right?
Absolutely.
And you're starting to see, like, I didn't realize how much your agency was doing, because you guys were at that $1 million level a few years ago.
Correct.
And kind of, you almost had like a whole rebuild.
Yeah,
you guys dropped down. What was the lowest you got to?
500, 600.
Lost half the volume.
Correct.
And now you're back to where you were before.
1.1, 1.2. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, I'm assuming, following that, you'll probably surpass. You'll probably set new records this year.
Well, with the IULs, and with the volume of lead availability, right? There's no limit to the amount of opportunities that we can have.
Right.
And, working with, Yaspi and the team, in Dallas, they're always coming up, they're listening, right? They're not going with, blinders on. They're like, hey, what's happening? What's working well? And they're implementing it into that. And so many different tools that we have, with our relationship.
What would you say to this statement? I hear this a lot, and it makes me want to take my head. You see this hard resin table with it. Yeah. Makes you want to bash my forehead into this table until I'm unconscious. I'm not going to do it, but it'd probably be a good clip, right? When people say, Eric, you're right, the leads do suck. All leads suck. Well, what do you say to that?
And you hear, and I've heard this a long time, I've heard it many times, but when the person clicked on that, whether it was yesterday, 6 months ago, 18 months ago, there was a reason why they clicked on it. Right. People don't click on, curling irons because they don't want to get, their hair curled. People click on that for a reason.
And I are not clicking on curling irons.
No, that's never happened here. Everyone knows that.
not happening. Nope.
But, getting to that point, and why did they click on it? Bring me back to that spot, Bob and Mary, when you clicked on this and you requested the information. I know you're not interested anymore. You already got it taken care of, but just tell me a little bit, bring me back to that spot. And, when you're making 300, 400, 500 aisles a day, you're going to have the opportunities.
Right.
I think, the leads suck when you dial 50 and you're there and you go to lunch for 3 hours and you dial 10 and then you're like, okay, that's a wrap. I'm like, that's a wrap.
Right.
Like, dude, you dialed 60 times.
Yeah, I don't think it's the leads.
Yeah, it's definitely not the leads. Right. Because, every day that there isn't a week that goes by that I don't, help a family that, submitted the lead months ago. Now, I'll help people that submitted within 72 hours.
Sure.
But, when my fresh leads have been exhausted for that day, well, I don't.
You don't go home for the day.
No. No, it's 2 o'clock.
Right.
I'm going, okay, let's go to Phone Burner, which we can now use, through the lead center.
Yep.
Let's go to, another dialer system, and let's, load them up, and let's, run through them, and let's do 60, 70, 80 dials in an hour. Let's have some conversations.
Sure.
Let's set some appointments. Let's figure out what's wrong. Let's ask for referrals. These people, they're looking for the information.
Correct.
They're looking for the information. So it's just a lack of opportunities. I'm not a baseball guy, but Dom's a baseball guy, right? I can't hit an 80-mile-an-hour curveball or however fast those pitches are thrown.
Right.
That's because you haven't seen enough.
Correct.
That's because you haven't swung the bat at enough and missed enough.
Right.
You can hit it. That movie Major League where that huge guy is always missing it and then he gets it figured out because he practiced and he figured it out. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's it's a mindset thing. Like, I think once you tell yourself that it sucks, you might as well not even pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm. You're done. Yeah.
Yeah. There are leads out there that suck.
Mm-hmm.
But they're typically things like, I'm looking for, to get my house power washed, and all of a sudden I'm in a mortgage protection lead.
Yeah.
Right? You click on, you've been in car sales. I'm sure there was some leads where they're not looking for cars.
No.
And you're still, hey, Eric, here's your lead. You're like, what am I supposed to do with this shit?
Yeah.
But that's not this industry. It's almost like if we could take the people that say that and put them into one of these sales industries where they really have bad leads, and then come back and now say that about a lead. Because to your point, regardless of how old it is, what kind of mood the client is in today, what they clicked on or filled out or called in about mentioned life insurance. They knew it was about life insurance. They knew they wanted information on life insurance. No, the deal's not going to be closed the minute they say hello, but there was intent. There's something about life insurance that's attracting them right now, and that's why you're talking to them.
Yeah, and when they're putting information in there, like who the beneficiary is going to be.
Correct.
Right. They're putting information on how much they want.
Right.
They're putting information whether they're looking to, because they have no coverage, they're looking to replace their current coverage, or they're looking to supplement their current coverage. When they're answering those types of questions, like there cannot be any confusion that they're interested in something.
Sure.
They're looking to have a conversation with an experienced professional in this space. And then so when you dial, and sometimes it takes 12, sometimes it takes 20, sometimes it takes 30 dials to get them to answer the phone. When they do answer the phone, now it's time for you to find out how you can help them.
Right. You know? Absolutely. I used to work at a company years ago. Before this, right, we had leads that there was a final expense lead that came out that said free on it, Eric, probably 12 times. It said, get this free information. There were even some sentences that had the phrase free life insurance in it, right? Well, I don't know, we didn't create them. Most of the company complained about them. You know what we would do? Because, you know, Sean, we book the appointments. I come to your house, Eric, and you'd go, is this free? And I'd look you dead in the eye and go, how long you lived in America, bro? You're like, my whole life. Is anything free in this country? No. You're looking for life insurance, right? Yes, I am. Okay, let's get the free out of it. You know what's free? Me to come out and talk to you. Anyways, and you checked off $10,000. You thought that someone was going to give you $10,000 for free? Yeah. You didn't think that. That's a lie. So anyways, let's move on. How long have you lived here?
Yep.
And you just address it and move on.
And not only that, flushing out who the beneficiary or beneficiaries are going to be,
right?
Regardless if they thought it was free, because okay, let's play pretend and imagine that it's free for a second.
Yeah.
When you're no longer here, who do you want this free money to go to?
Correct.
Perfect. So let's talk about them.
Yep.
Okay. You passed away yesterday. What's the situation here today?
Yep.
Who's picking up the pieces? So, the quicker people can get to the beneficiary. So when I'm in my office and someone's on a phone call and they're within the first 20, 30 seconds, like if I don't hear some type of line or phrase or question that's asking about beneficiary, I'm like, beneficiary, beneficiary, like that's me. Like, it could be a parrot in the corner.
Right.
I should have one of those buttons I can just press, beneficiary, because as soon as that comes out, then it becomes real.
Right.
And regardless if you're making an appointment, you can't connect on that call. The last thing that you want them to think about on that is, oh yeah, my wife. Whether you have $1 million gazillion in the bank or you have zero, that's what you're thinking about.
Correct.
Is there really enough there?
Yeah.
To help out?
But it's just, I believe it's mindset. It's mindset. It's mindset.
Yep.
Whatever you put out, you'll get back. But I've walked into houses that didn't fill out a lead by mistake because I'm just running around. I sitting down and about 20 minutes into the appointment, the lady goes, "That's not my name." And I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "That's my neighbor." I was like, "Oh, you probably got one of these too." She's like, "Yeah, I did." I'm like, "All right, well, let's just take care of it now." Sold her policy. I went to this guy's house who no-showed me like 3 or 4 times. It was in New Haven. I'm walking out. His neighbor is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, it's like in, not a nice area in New Haven. I'm like, "I'm leaving this house, bro. What's up?" "What are you selling?" He's like, he always does that, by the way. I'm like, "Okay, go to my next appointment. I'm selling life insurance." "Oh, I need some." I'm like, "Well, what are you doing right now?" "Nothing." So I go in. Him and his brother live together. They got a couple kids. I'll write up the whole family. He didn't fill out a form.
Yep.
So when you go, the lead sucks. Dude, you have someone that sent something in, initiated contact about life insurance. Fix this. How about all agents suck until they don't? How about
There
that?
you go.
I mean, all agents suck in the beginning, right?
Yep.
We all go through it.
And if you have a lead, that's within a reasonable driving distance to your house, it's okay to go to their house.
Right.
Just because you are a telesales agent,
Sure.
Now, like we have, I was helping Dylan yesterday with a client, right?
Yeah.
And the client lives in East Hartford. I live 15 minutes from East
Right.
Hartford. So I'm like, hey, if we can't figure this out over the phone, I'd be more than happy to stop over. And even if they're not going to expect me today, and this isn't live, so I will be knocking on their door today just to introduce myself face to face.
Why not?
Just say, hey, just wanted to connect the dots. I know this was important.
Right.
It's for her husband. So
Dude, there's companies that get leads and don't call them and just go door knock. Like but again, it goes back to this. If you believe it's not going to happen, if you believe you're going to fail, you're going to fail. It starts with the mindset. You talked about, or before we got on here, about a death claim.
Yes.
One that was very impactful to you. When did that happen? When was that?
Man, it was 2019 for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it was my first year in business.
First death claim?
First death claim. Had no intention of going to the person's house. I may have talked about this before, but it was a full day in the field.
Yeah.
I probably had a lot of losses and I had a couple wins.
Okay.
Probably had a lot of no-shows and, a lot of family emergencies. There's no business has more family emergencies
I know, right?
than the life insurance business. The emergency rooms must be filled every day that I'm in the field.
Yep.
And she had self-booked her own appointment, and that's when I didn't really have my calendar dialed in.
Okay.
So she was allowed to book it 2 weeks out, where we know that anything more than 72 hours is probably, not going to connect.
Correct.
But she was home. It was her day off. The door was open. I knocked on the door. She's like, "Who is it?" And I go, "It's the guy you set the appointment with a couple weeks ago." "I don't remember, but come in." She didn't even get up to let me in. I'm like, "Okay, where are you?" So I kind of wandered through her smaller home.
Yeah.
And she was on the couch. There were, her and a family friend was watching Wife Swap.
Okay.
And
you're like, what am I getting myself
I'm like, what's
into?
going on? And that show's funny because it's easy to make fun of the people that are on there. And I'm sitting on the couch and she was talking about her son who had a lot of concussions playing ice hockey. And I had a couple myself playing football over the years. And just trying to connect the dots. And the only thing that was in her budget was a $5,000 face amount.
Okay.
Which is fine. It was more than the son because the son was going to be the beneficiary or was going to be the beneficiary. And so we put that in place. It was it Labor Day? It was Memorial Day weekend or Labor Day weekend. I think it might have been Labor Day weekend. And
you working on a holiday? Oh my God.
The bills are going to come the next day. The
Right?
mailman might get that day off, but they have the bills that are going to drop off the next day.
You just get double the bills.
No doubt. And so we got approved immediately over the phone. It was an Americo policy.
Yeah.
And Monday was that Labor Day or Memorial Day. I can't remember what it was. And the son was in a funeral home on Tuesday.
Wow.
I remember I was driving, through the main street of my town, and I literally had to pull over because my breath was taken away.
Really?
They're like, "Yeah, I found this card." And
who called you? The son?
The son did from the funeral home.
Wow.
And he goes, "I'm at the funeral home," and he says that doesn't mean anything, but it was in my mom's bag, and I was just like, I was just at her house like 2 days ago.
Wow.
And he's like, "Yeah, I know." I'm like, I can't believe. And I mean, eventually, if you sell enough life insurance, you're eventually going to get death claims. I mean, people are going to pass away.
Absolutely.
But this was just like, and it wasn't like it was like a $3 million death benefit or, it was just like, or some tragic, it was just like, I can't believe it, And, so sure enough, it wasn't post dated and it, everything was good. And they did I think they did like a direct pay right to the funeral home to, to figure out whatever they were figuring out. But yeah, that was, obviously it made it, I think the first time you realize that this opportunity is real when you get a deposit.
Sure.
So you can go to the grocery store and help your family.
Right.
And then the second time where this is real is when you or someone you work directly with, has a, death claim. And I often go on, every day I do, I go to, my American Amicable and my American, and I will filter out by death claim. I'm like, let me take a look at it.
Wow.
And I'll just because I want to see death claims.
Yeah.
And not because I'm, I want to make sure that if the agent needs help or the family needs help, now with Legacy Protector or Safeguard, Legacy Safeguard, we have a tool that really helps a lot with that through Integrity. But I want to see that because it kind of wakes me up for it to being real when I'm like, look at all these death claims.
Right.
And what if I never called Eric Anthony back in late 2018 and Sean didn't say, hey, you might suck at this, but you might as well give it a shot because the car business is killing you.
Right.
And and again, maybe these people would have became agents. Maybe I would have became an agent somewhere else. But, these death claims that, that are going to go through, the families are going to get left in a better spot. Mm-hmm. So it definitely brings it back to reality for me.
Because it's easy to get caught up in the day to day. Where it's a grind. Mm-hmm. I tell it to anyone who, how it's a great business. It is a great business, but it's not a get rich quick scheme. No. It's a grind, and it does not work. Matter of fact, it doesn't work for most people.
For most,
if you look at numbers, and 25% of the people will actually make it through and end up making sales and helping families. Mm-hmm. Like most people do not make it through. They get weeded out at every step, right?
Yeah.
But it's easy to get caught up in the leads, the dials, like you said, 70,000 miles a year on a car. Mm-hmm. You're going and going and going. So sometimes it's easy to lose sight of how important what we do really is. until something like that happens. And I agree, it makes it real. It makes it so real because now you're and then you carry that into your next appointments.
Yes, when you're reviewing, and if you don't do this already, you should take a look. And if you don't have a big enough sample size, connect with someone in your agency that does and say, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you pull up all your death claims that you've had with, choose a carrier? And then just like, wow, what would that mindset be when you make that next dial?
Correct.
Are you going to accept what they're telling you that this, that, or the other thing? When people pass away,
right.
People pass away with no money.
Yep.
That, there's websites out there that, all they do is, look to help people with GoFundMe pages or something. I mean, it's just like, it's powerful.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, the next time you hear an objection, like you have a death claim and then you go to your next appointment, and you hear that, I'm going to think about it. Like it's, you at least me, I felt so different about it. Like, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not going to fail this family. Yeah. I looked at it like that. If I walk out of here, you filled out a form, you called in, you did whatever you did, clicked on a box online, I booked an appointment with you, I made it out to your house, you're healthy enough to get the insurance. All those things happen. Like sometimes we lose sight of everything that happens to even get to that point. Oh, yeah. Everybody, just like everyone won't make it in this business, everyone's not eligible for life insurance. Bad driving record, really significant health issue. There's some issues that will disqualify you. So not only did we go through all these steps, how many leads do you get where you never meet that person? A lot, right? So we are out there, person qualifies, and then we don't help them.
And also, too, just kind of to piggyback on that, Mike, how many people do we feel they actually don't qualify and we don't ask for help?
Right.
Where they actually would have qualified.
Sure.
Because you don't think of, you take our 4 or 5 core carries, but you don't think of this, carry that we'd only use for unique situations. Well, they have a specific diabetes, situation, or they have a specific neuropathy situation, or, they had cancer, or they had a stroke, or they had a stent, or whatever. And you're like, well, why didn't I ask for help?
Yeah.
Why did I just, go to something guaranteed issue? Now, maybe we can always go to that,
sure.
right? Or maybe I had to go to something even beyond, guaranteed issue, like an accidental death benefit,
right?
Because they're too young to qualify for one, but they could qualify for that. But why didn't I ask for help? Because maybe it would have been like, oh, no, go with this carrier because they specifically help clients with those situations. Maybe it's not an instant decision. Maybe it's not someone that you memorize your producer number with, but they're in your toolbox.
Right. Call someone.
Yeah.
I think it's ego, right? Oh. Like, hey, I couldn't help him, dude. Call Eric. He might be able to steer you in the right direction.
Oh, dude, helping 1,000 families in my first year, I called from every home.
Yeah.
There are certain people I could call and certain people, but I called from every home.
Right. Because
if they had a cholesterol problem and they were on atorvastatin, I wanted to call my cholesterol expert. Okay. If they had this, I wanted to call the expert on that. Right. Yep. I wanted to always check my bill charts. I needed to know I wasn't going to miss it by a pound.
Right.
So there's so many intricacies of this, but don't go on it on your own. No. Especially, I still call for help all the time. Yeah. But I'm not shy, and I want to help the family.
Right.
So,
you mentioned you said a statement earlier. If I didn't reach out to Eric or Sean or whatnot, I wouldn't be here. Now you had a license in the past, like prior to this.
I got my license in 2008. Sean introduced me to the opportunity then.
Yeah.
And I failed the exam. He only gave me, he knows this, but he only gave me half the material. This was before, Excel. So he only gave me half the material. I did horrible.
Yeah.
Actually, the lady turned on the exam. I'm like, I'm in the wrong class. They're like, no, you're in the right class. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I failed terribly. Went back again, failed it by 1.
Yeah.
Probably did a little damage to the bathroom wall when I was leaving that facility. And then I passed it the 3rd time. And then I bought leads. Sean, shared some leads with me. They are totally different.
Sure.
I don't know what the math is on years from 08 to now, but 16 years ago, whatever. Yeah. But totally different. Did a lot of warm market, connectivity then as well. And then, there's a big real estate crash in 08. I got diagnosed with cardiomyopathy and atrial fibrillation in 2009.
Yeah.
Carrie and I had Grace, our second child, who's now 15. We had her that year, so there was just a lot going on, and it just wasn't the right time.
Right.
And then 10 years later, because of social media and staying connected. Yeah.
Yeah. So you went Now, you didn't leave the car business and you were doing this part-time?
I never left in '08. No,
Got it.
no.
Doing this part-time, what, a few months, year, how long, roughly?
I would say several months. It was less than a year.
Got it. And then all this stuff happened, not the right time. You kind of go, you know what, I'm done with this for now. At that point, did you ever think you would come back?
I knew that I knew the car business wasn't going to be forever. Just because I knew how it was affecting my health, my family, my children. But I had no control of my schedule. Yeah. Zero. And I was missing a bunch, and it was putting a lot of pressure on Carrie. And so when I started seeing, how many families people were helping, like, whether it was Frank or Dom, or other, Brent or John, any of these people, and I'm like, man, and again, no disrespect to those guys, but I'm like, if they can do it, there's no way I can't do it. With all due respect.
Sure. Well, you had reference because you did help families prior. Yeah. Like, you saw. I remember, it's funny, as you were leaving, I was coming in. So, like, some of the leads you bought, by the way, I actually closed.
Good.
Yeah. So thank you.
Good job. Good. Thanks.
It helped me get started in my career.
Yeah.
It was funny because Sean's like, dude, my buddy Eric, he actually just quit. And he bought a bunch of leads, and it was like Tallinn and Windham County. Yep. He's like, I'm going to send you up there. I'm like, dude, send me anywhere. I don't care. So I appreciate you for that.
No, I appreciate you.
But then that was at the old company. We left when we did, and 2013 started this. And I would assume that's probably when you were seeing us on social media like crazy, because we were marketing like crazy. Yeah. And you knew Sean. You met him prior.
Yeah, well, I sold Sean cars when I was working with his best friend at the dealership. Yeah, Kyle.
So you always kind of knew Sean.
Yeah, we never hung out or ran together, but I knew him and knew of him and helped him with that stuff.
Got it. Yeah. So friends on social media, you keep tabs, and then did he reach out to you, or how did it even the talk of you even
in '08?
No, the second time when you came back.
Second time, no one reached out to me. Okay. I was driving back from Cheshire back up to Ellington, 45 minutes each way every day. And I didn't even have Eric Anthony's telephone number. So I just, on Facebook, you had that phone option where it calls people through Facebook, which is really weird. But that's the only way I got in touch. And it was just maybe I had a bad day at the dealership, or Carrie's like, enough is enough, or I just missed something with my kids. And so I just clicked the phone button. He answered. He's like, about time. And like he was sitting there waiting, like, come on, Schmidt, call. Right. And so he sent me the information, got me into the course, and passed the first time this time. Yeah. And that was it. And then, kind of went from there.
Right. Rest is history. We'll wrap up with some recruiting stuff. I talked about Freddie, who I love, by the way. Yeah. Great kid.
Now, that came from Andrew's TikTok. Right?
I know. Yeah. Yep. Talk to me about that recruiting mentality. I mean, it was almost very similar to the way you got recruited back. Like, Eric didn't beg you to come back. He's just kind of like, dude, about time.
Yeah,
right?
Well, in '08, Sean says, hey, do you have extra time?
Yeah.
And at that time, Evan was 3, Carrie was pregnant, but I'm like, yeah, because I was on cruise control at the dealership. Prior to when everything crashed, people were, having their houses buy cars.
Exactly.
It was just like, it was just an order taker. Yep. Right. Yeah, and everything on the internet was set up for me. People would come and ask for me. So I'm like, yeah, dude, like, I'm good. What else you got? Right. But now, but no one recruited me. I recruited myself into this, and the opportunity was there because people were sharing it. If people were not sharing, if FFL Corporate wasn't sharing, if Eric wasn't sharing what he was doing, then I would have been, probably still pressing buttons and doing Foursquares at the dealership. And how much you want for your trade? Right. It's only $20 more a month. Well, yeah, but you extended the term 12 months. I didn't want to do that. I'm like, all right, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Talk to me about the mentality, though, of recruiting, right? Because, we went through it with Freddie, but it's almost like if I didn't know any better, if I'm naive and have never been in this business, I would think, dude, it sounds like you're trying to get them not to do this.
Oh, yeah.
But you
absolutely. Oh, yeah, 100%. And I learned that from Andrew. Andrew talks about it a lot. He spends more time talking about why they shouldn't do it than why they should.
Right.
So we have, I work with Jamie, Euphemia, and Frank, and we have a whole list of questions that we ask. And, did you play any sports in high school? Have you ever had your own business? When did you start working? Yeah. Okay. How long ago was that? And then I say, well, the reason I ask is because, this is the kind of income that is potential in this business if you work and if you invest and if you ask for questions and if you are humble and you don't have a big ego, but a lot of times people haven't been able to never had the opportunity to manage this kind of money, And, I ask questions like, if you're no longer here in 60 days, why would that be?
Mm.
And
what do they normally say?
They usually put it on themselves.
Yeah.
Which is the right answer.
Right.
Right. Well,
that's what you're looking for.
Exactly. And then I dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Well, that means I probably didn't try hard enough. Well, what does that mean? Just like I do on telesales with leads,
right.
because these are people, when you're working with hundreds of agents, because we have, a couple hundred agents that I work with directly, but, we're all one team. So, if Bob calls me from Oklahoma or Mary calls me from Florida, regardless if they're in my agency or not, I'm asking questions, I'm jumping on a phone call, I'll do a three-way, I'll help with an underwriting, whatever it is. And now we're on all these Zoom calls all the time. It's not like it's just FFL Northeast Zoom call. It's whomever's on there, but I'm saying, this is probably not the right thing for you. And I'll say, do you have 4 to 6 hours every day for the next 10 days, uninterrupted, no excuses?
Right.
Well, why is that? Well, that's what you're going to need in order to pass the exam. Okay. And then people, and I know there's a sale made every time.
Sure.
So if they sell me and I'm like, okay, if the money looks right, I'm like, you are going to, it's $50 for the exam, $50 for the license, $144 for the and you're going to have to buy some leads. I'll have some second chance leads available for you in your area, but they've been called dozens of times, but this will give you the opportunity to start to find your voice. But you will need money to invest in leads. Do you have X, set aside? No, I don't. I said, with all due respect, it's probably not the right time for you. I said,
that's okay.
Yeah. And then I said, you might be able to work somewhere else in Family First Life or in this industry, but it just won't be with me. And here are the reasons why.
Right.
Because, when I'm selling and I'm trying to help 400 or 500 families in a year, and I'm trying to help others in my agency help 400 or 500 families. There's only, and I'm a son, I'm a dad, I'm a husband. You get 168 hours in a week, but it runs out quick when you spread yourself too thin. So I want to make sure that that's crystal clear with them, and the investment that I'm willing to make in them, if they're willing to make that same investment. It doesn't just have to be dollars, but but I'll see people and sometimes I'll see people that are 100% through the test, through the thing, but I'm like, well, what's the next step? And then I'll see, because I get that email at 3:15 every morning from Excel. And that's one of the first things I look at. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, when they last log in, okay, that's not what we talked about. Right. So
it's, you're building a business, and I've heard this years ago, go into business with people that you like and you want to be in business with, right? And it's the same concept when you're building when you're recruiting. Recruit people you like.
Oh, yeah.
Recruit people, not just like, you like because they're funny or we like the same TV shows. No, they have the same values. They're going to do the same things you're willing to do. And it's okay. Like, I love what you said. You could probably join another FFL agency or another company in the same, but you're not a good fit for this one because this is how we do it here. Yes and no on a recruiting call is of equal value. It's not oh my God, I got a yes, or damn it, he said no. No, getting the answer is the goal. Yeah. Right? Because if you get the wrong person to say yes, that's just going to lead to a ton of headaches down the road. They're never going to be the right person. Weed them out as soon as possible. There's plenty of people out there.
Oh, millions.
Millions of people.
Millions of people.
That's why it's mind-boggling sometimes when you get these, internally they're fighting. Well, I recruited so-and-so. I'm like, dude, do you know how many forget about unlicensed. Do you know how many licensed agents are out there, number one? Do you know how many people are out there, number two? Just call somebody else. Yeah. Let it go. But you don't understand. I talked to him. I don't give a shit. Just call somebody else.
That's one thing that Eric shared with me in the beginning, because I would, every once in a while you think you're talking to Michael Jordan. Yeah. And he's like, Schmidt, relax. Right. Calm down. Yeah. It's one person, but you don't know. You don't know in the beginning. You're like, oh my God, this is the guy. This is the girl.
I got a guy. Like when people say that's almost up there with all the leads. I got a guy. I'll tell you about this guy or this. How many times have you heard this? He's going to be great at it. I've never seen someone be great at it after someone made that statement. It's usually the person you least expect. Yeah. I've never seen it. He's going to be great. He's either going to roll up a bunch of debt or he's going to quit pretty soon. Yeah. Yeah. But yes or no, equal value. Recruit for the no. Try to get them to say no. I love what Zach Twardowski years ago, he said this on a podcast. He said that kind of like what you were talking about, asking these questions and really trying to weed them out. He said, when when you spend $2,000 on leads, Eric, and you make no sales, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Oh, that could happen. Oh, no. That will happen. It may not happen your first. It may happen 3 months in. Dude, I remember I was like 3-4 months in already, making sales, doing well, and then I had an 0 for 10 day out of nowhere. Sat in 10 houses and didn't help one family. Mm-hmm. It's gonna happen, not if. See what they say.
Yeah.
Weed them out.
How was your mindset before that day? How was it afterwards? And how'd you deal with it moving forward? Yeah. Zach was one of the first, because he started a little bit before me, and we hung out. This is, obviously, he's married, has children, with Deb, but, they were just dating at the time when we were chatting in Vegas. And he's like, dude, it's just not that deep. Mm-mm. And I always come back to that. It's just not that deep.
Nope.
It's just not that deep.
Just
go to work.
Right.
The answer to most of your challenges is leads.
Yeah.
Get more. 2
things that you control in this business that will determine your success or lack thereof: attitude, activity. Yep. That's it.
Yeah,
there's nothing else.
We got I wear the sweatshirt. We got the T-shirts.
Yeah, it's not just a cool slogan that looks cool on shirts. It's real. Mm-hmm. Well, Eric, we like to wrap up with stuff that has nothing to do with life insurance. So I'm going to just throw a few random questions at you.
All right. Here we go.
They're usually about the same. I got a few favorites that I go to, right? You a movie guy?
Yeah.
Yeah? So, my boy Elon Musk wants to move us all to Mars one day, right?
Yeah.
So say we're getting ready to move, and he says, Eric, we only got enough room for you to bring one movie with you, bro.
Yeah.
One movie you're going to bring to Mars and watch for the rest of your life up there. What's that movie?
So I heard Sean's answer to this
the
other day, and he and I do like similar movies.
Yep.
We repeat lines to those similar movies.
Yes.
But one he didn't say that I know he likes that I really like is Heat with Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. Just a great movie.
Yep.
So his favorite is definitely one of my favorites. If you watch that episode, if you don't know, then go back and watch it.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you.
No,
right
absolutely
now.
not.
Nope.
But I think that's a great movie.
Yeah.
One great movie that I don't think a lot of people know is True Romance.
Okay.
You know that movie?
It sounds familiar, but I can't.
It's got Christopher Walken in it, and Gandolfini's in it. I can't. The younger guy, I can't remember his name, is the main star. But True Romance, it's a.
Oh, is it like the Bonnie and Clyde story kind of?
Yes. Yeah.
That is a really good movie.
That's like top 5 awesome movie, and a lot of people don't know about it.
No.
And the title has nothing to do with the movie.
Right.
But it does, but it doesn't explain the movie. So not a kids movie.
No, not at all. When you said Gandolfini, it rung about because I think he's an underrated actor. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't think unfortunately died too early.
Way too young.
But,
so I'll say True Romance.
Yeah, there you go, True Romance. We'll piggyback off the Sean questions then. If you could be any fictional character in history, who would it be and why?
So fictional character.
Yep.
So that's like superheroes, not real people.
Or a character from a movie that's not real. It doesn't have to be.
I guess that's true. Man, I don't know. I might get stumped on this one. So for movies, I don't know if this is exactly what my thoughts are, but it's just something that's come to my mind here.
Okay.
But, I like Batman.
Yeah.
I like how he's under the radar. Not everyone knows who he is.
Right.
He doesn't have to do any of this stuff because his family's got tons and tons of money. But he's going out there and doing things, and he's got his own problems, but he's figuring it all out and helping people. So
nice.
In this scenario, I probably have other answers with longer thought, but I'll go with Batman.
No, that's actually the most popular answer.
Is it really?
Out of the probably 10 times I've asked this question, I think 8 people said Batman. So, which would have been my answer. I mean, I'm a huge Batman fan. So cool.
And you got the comic stuff on, so
absolutely.
It's
so that's why. There you go.
It's hitting you right in the face.
I helped you out. Well, there we go. Eric the Dark Knight. But I appreciate you coming out
doing
this.
Man.
Appreciate everything you're doing. And it's awesome to see you kind of, on the comeback right now. Like, built it up, had some shit that happened, which happens in business.
No doubt.
Embraced it. Then, what happens to a lot of people when that happens is they quit.
They fold up.
They fold. Like, I can't do this anymore. Because I used to be here, now I'm here. Instead of like, all right, well, how do I get back there? And how do I build it so that it doesn't happen again?
Yeah. And I think that comes with the recruiting, that stronger foundation. Because when you go from whatever the math is, thousands of families a month to hundreds of families a month, that's because the foundation wasn't strong enough. So if you're asking the right questions, you're making the right decisions with recruiting, putting currently we have more than 30 direct legs in the agency to me. So we're building it as strong as we possibly can this time.
Yeah.
So we can remain Hall of Fame moving forward. So.
Well, that's a great way to put it. We built it on a weak foundation. It crumbled, and now we're building.
I've proven the weak foundation will crumble.
There you go. Hey, that's a good perspective, right?
No doubt.
Well, hey, I appreciate you doing this. I really do.
Awesome.
Guys, thanks for joining us. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Share this with someone. I know it will help them, and you know where to find us every week right here on True Talk. We'll see you next week.